Let's tie this back to last week, though, okay? So if you listened to Sleepless with Steve last week, you already knew this, or you at least had an idea that this was in the works. But I still have a feeling that a lot of people, outside maybe our 10 listeners, did not know this. And this is what makes this very exciting. So Super Bowl 52 was this weekend.
Yes,
all right.
was.
It was a great game if you weren't a New England fan. It was a great.
It was just a great game, though. It was
period.
close.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was a very good game, aggressive game. But there was a little surprise during the game. I think it came after or during the first. I think it came during around the first quarter.
The first quarter, it was shown. At the end of the game, it was like officially announced by Netflix.
Yes, there was
articles bouncing around about it, but
yes.
Netflix announced right after the game was over, they released another trailer for the movie that we're going to be talking about.
And there was another trailer too, I think after the halftime, okay? And we are, of course, talking about the Cloverfield Paradox. It was released immediately after the game, released onto Netflix on February 4th this past Sunday. It was released onto Netflix. And we talked extensively, though, last week on the show, because I was reading there was a lot of news swirling around about Netflix potentially acquiring God Particle, as it was originally called, from Paramount. And now we have it in the form of the Cloverfield Paradox, okay? So there's a lot to talk about. We're going to try to stick firmly to the film this first hour. And I'm not going to publish a written review of this, so my review is going to be strictly on Sleepless. So we're going to stick to the film the first hour. Next hour, for the first half hour at least, we're going to talk about what we think of Paramount selling it to Netflix. Do we think it was a successful move? And speaking of, because we already got Cloverfield 4 allegedly coming to theaters, maybe even this year. There's a lot to get into with this, but we got to start with the optics of Cloverfield Paradox. Joe, you're great at this. You're better at this than me. Would you like to give a brief plot summary of Cloverfield Paradox?
So there's a character named Hamilton, and she is chosen along with a bunch of other scientists to go up into space and try to find a renewable energy source. Basically, just energy that we can keep reusing back here on Earth. So she goes up there, and for months, these scientists, years even, I think, they're up there just trying to find out how they can find this unlimited energy source by using science stuff and space stuff in order to get like this unlimited energy. Unfortunately, what happens is they manage to do it, but at what cost? They all of a sudden, once they realize, hey, we just found unlimited energy, but wait, where's the Earth? And now they have to figure out, where is the Earth? Where are they? How are they going to get back home? And mystery just goes on from there.
Indeed. Very, very nice way to put it. Ava Hamilton is played by actress Gugu Bhatta-Raw. She plays Ava Hamilton. It's actually got a very good cast in this. You got amidst the space crew, the motley crew of space astronauts, you have David Oyelowo, who's of course a very good actor from Selma, most famously. Yep. You have Daniel Bruhl. You have John Ortiz, Chris O'Dowd. You have a slew of really good actors, diverse cast as well. So yeah, a lot of good people, at least in this thing. Of course, you might know Chris O'Dowd from the IT Crowd as well. So there's a lot here. So general impressions, gentlemen. General impressions overall of after watching Cloverfield Paradox. We're gonna keep it spoiler free, just because
I was gonna say this is gonna be a little difficult.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. I think we can do it. I think we can manage. But talk general impressions. We'll start with you, Joe, of the Cloverfield Paradox.
Well, first impression was, I think this film, honestly, for being on Netflix, it looks beautiful, honestly.
Really?
Like, I think, like, special effects wise and just, the shots of them in space, I think it looks pretty good, honestly. But the biggest impression I had was probably the character Hamilton. I think she's probably the best character written in this movie, since she gets the most time and development as a character and the person you mainly care for. Yeah.
trying to keep it light there, Dominic. Chime in.
A question: how long? This is a question for everyone. How long ago did you see this? Because we're filming this currently on Wednesday.
I saw it right after the Super Bowl.
You saw it right after the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I saw it Tuesday. I saw it the morning of February 6th. It is February 7th today.
I saw it like 6 hours ago.
Okay, so we got it kind of fresh.
Yeah.
I didn't want to watch it after the Super Bowl. I said no. This was a great game. I want to go home, go to bed. I also said I was not in the right frame of mind to watch.
I will also say that, and I still watched it.
I said, like, I'm gonna wait. I said I'm gonna wait on that. You know what I mean? But yeah, so we've seen it fairly recently. Dom and I have just seen it yesterday, or at least very early yesterday. So talk about your general impressions, though, Dominic.
Oh man! First and foremost, the shock of finding out how it was released weighed heavily on my kind of excitement and my view of the film, and that's just something that you can't quite take away from it. Additionally, just the overall mystery was just so enticing.
Yeah,
and the exposition just flew by so fast. And what makes good science fiction, to me, what I consider to be good science fiction, is one that lays down the rules very plainly, or not very plainly, but rather when they start breaking the rules and messing with it feels good, right? And the thing about the Cloverfield Paradox is that the rules it lays down are just absolute nuts.
Yeah.
It is all over the place. It's not complicated, but the topic they're trying to introduce to you is freaking. It's fun. It's fun, and I'm surprised that. I'm not the biggest connoisseur on science fiction, but it can be a hard topic.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. What they're trying to play with here, and I don't know if we want to give it away, but the whole science behind what's really happening here.
We can flirt with it. I have a strong feeling too. Not that I want to get into spoiler territory, but I have a strong feeling that the people that are going to actively seek out reviews have seen it already.
Okay,
you know what I mean. But like we're alluding to. I'm not even alluding to. It deals a lot with like multi-dimensional travel, multiverses, even alternate realities.
And when it comes to science fiction writing,
adjacent realities,
you are absolutely right. It is hard to write stuff like that because the rules you can play with there are endless. And the thing is the movie took that for granted, honestly, and they were just throwing rules at you. They were just like, and now this is happening. And now this is happening.
Absolutely.
It's funny because I thought they actually laid down the ground rules very, very well.
They did.
And
the execution of it, though.
Yeah,
for me, was just like, whoa, okay, this is getting way too crazy.
It's getting way too crazy. I actually thought they could have done more with it.
Because
I think so too.
Yeah, with their premise, I thought they could go even balls to the wall is the phrase. I think they could have demolished that wall and go way out there, like an episode of Black Mirror that just goes way out there.
You know what this felt? Not to interrupt you. You know what this felt like though? When you mentioned Black Mirror, this felt like a pilot for a Cloverfield TV series.
Yeah, honestly,
that's what this felt like. And I don't know. And again, you could kind of go back and forth, but this feels like it was really. So this I would have felt maybe a little bit odder if this did come to theaters, because this did feel like it was right at home on Netflix streaming.
Yeah, it did feel like Paramount we'll talk about it later, but it feel like Paramount making the move to Netflix, it seems more appropriate,
Save face for this.
Going back to what you're saying, I think it helped with my viewing, because I watched this with a group of people. And they were.
I watched it with my dad, and the whole time we were talking over it, and just going like, "Are they doing this? Is this happening?" Or it's like,
I was watching with a group of people, and only me and one other friend, we knew like what they were playing with here, so like we were ready for anything. Because we're very familiar with any because it's not really done in movies too much, I think, with multi-dimensional travel. I more see it in video games, books, even TV series. I see it more there. So I'm more familiar with it, that when I was looking at everybody else in the room, they were confused. Because the one thing about this movie, I think they didn't do the best job, honestly, explaining on what's going on.
I would agree with that.
They just had stuff happen and gave no explanation to it, and was just like, how did that end up inside of that person?
And you said too, you're familiar, at least more familiar than many people, I mean, including myself, I would say too, with this kind of concept of like multi-dimensional travel, because I feel like movies are a little bit late to this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like video games have been doing it. I think films have been or TV shows have been hinting at it and toying with the possibilities. I don't think that you've gotten explicit depth with this when it comes to movies.
Only one movie in recent memory that I can think of has done it, has tried to tackle it, and it was Interstellar. And the way it handled it was actually the weakest point of the movie for a lot of people, because it got really, like, Matthew McConaughey was the lead in that movie, and he just was doing his best to explain it at the climax of the movie, and it fell flat for a lot of people, because you're trying to reach this climax, And then, well, he's trying to explain this rather hard, at least hard in the way they're trying to introduce it, concept, and it doesn't mesh well with a climax. Whereas Paradox didn't, like, okay, we're gonna do this at the start, and then you run off with the idea.
You're either with the movie at that point, or you're just going to be lost and fumbling around the entire time.
And and I'll tell you right now, I kind of fall on the ladder with this. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
What this feels like to me is a highlight reel of better space movies. Like, first off, I thought for the first 40 minutes, I thought I was watching Life again, the Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
I was going to say, this felt like Life, honestly, how small the space station felt and everything.
It looks and moves a lot like Life, like the Jake Gyllenhaal film.
You have different scientists from different countries.
Yes, I'd argue they don't feel adequately developed. I would argue that they kind of just feel like pawns to this greater scope. I mean, between the fact that it feels like Life, it feels somewhat like Alien Covenant. It feels like Event Horizon. I think Event Horizon's the big point of comparison with this thing, too. It felt less and less, and even though there's only been 2 movies, as it went on, it felt almost less and less like a Cloverfield movie and more like a compilation of horror movies, of horror space movies, like a grab bag even.
To me, though, I honestly liked everything that was going on in the space station. I thought what was happening in the space station were some of the better moments in the movie for me. Now, the other parts of this movie that try to connect to Cloverfield, though, is like a whole separate movie.
Yes.
It's like, I thought my friend was just like, okay, hold on, did we accidentally hit like a different movie real quick?
No kidding.
Because
you could say the same 10 Cloverfield Lane when you first saw it.
Honestly, yeah, but like at least 10 Cloverfield Lane was just one thing happening. They were in this bunker the entire time.
Very focused.
Very focused,
yes.
yeah. Here, you had the space station stuff, and I was enjoying it. Whenever it cut back to Earth, trying to tie into the other Cloverfield movie, that's all it really felt like. Like, it wastes, honestly, to me, David
Oyelowo.
I'm not even trying
David
to pronounce it.
Oyelowo.
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King. There you go. No, when we cut back to Earth, we have Roger Davies, who's Ava's husband.
Yeah,
Ava's husband, and he's it's Michael,
Hamilton's husband. Yeah,
played by Roger Davies. Yes. Yes, but I know what you're saying. Every time we cut back down to Earth, it feels like
It feels like a separate movie. It's a waste of his character, honestly, and the actor, because all he does the whole time on Earth is drive around hinting at what's happening when you know what obviously is happening and what's building up to towards an ending.
You need that, like, in terms of connective tissue, but you don't like it's hard. It takes away from the suspense, especially what's happening in the space station. You can't help but feel like you're missing when you're going back down to Earth. You can't help but feel like you're missing some like interpersonal Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, Sleepless with Steve on FM 89. Me, Steve Pulaski. Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon talking the Cloverfield Paradox. Dominic, you were saying something? I want to cut you off there.
This is a brisk movie. The runtime, I believe, and
hour
I actually
and 30 minutes.
An hour,
like
I thought it was an hour 40.
Yeah,
hour 36.
Hit end as soon as the movie hit credits, and I saw it hit 1 hour and 36 minutes.
Hour 36 because minus the credits. And man, for something that
to tackle it
to tackle
within that time frame,
we keep saying like, oh, this is some high theory kind of thing. It's really not, especially if you can visualize, if you can, show it in such a way. But again, how many characters total are on that space station?
6.
Yeah. So it's a lot to juggle through. And as you said, as you said, Steve, the character development was really lacking. The shoulder patches of their countries played a lot more of the character development.
That's their personality.
Yeah, no, really. That's
and like there's one character that's defined like his entire character is that he's Russian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's the subversive Russian.
He's angry.
That's pretty much what it is. Joe, you mentioned the fact that you thought the film you liked the effects of the film.
For what we got it on Netflix, I think honestly the space station itself, I thought it looked good for Netflix.
You keep saying that.
For the keyword, like I'm saying, is for Netflix.
If you have to lessen the blow, though, does it really like hybrids? Like I'll admit, I thought the film looked ugly. I thought it looked ugly for the most part.
I think the set, honestly,
I thought it was gloomy.
The inside of the space station, it wasn't appealing
at all. The space station, if you like during the establishing shots, looks like a giant weed whacker. You know what I mean? Like that's not the problem. I here's the thing: the movie is very same. Has the same look to it. You know what I mean? Throughout the whole time, it's very gloomy. Where if you go back and you look at like how visually distinct the first two films are, different but visually distinct.
Yeah.
You have the first one, which obviously harkens back to the found footage genre and whatnot, and the style of filming, which I thought was quite good for the first one. And then you have the second movie with 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is very crisp.
Gloomy.
Not only gloomy, like saturated in color. Like and you have like you also have a confined space. I thought this, especially when you draw comparison to like other movies, I think it looks pretty much like every other horror space movie that's been out recently.
I can agree with that. It was just honestly, what I mean like it looked good was just special effects wise. I honestly thought the space station looked good. And as it was like rotating around Earth, I'm like from the outside like shots, I'm like, this looks pretty good, honestly. Coming off of like other Netflix original movies with their special effects, I'm like, this is honestly better than most of those.
Yeah. Keep in mind though, again, remember it wasn't made for Netflix.
It wasn't.
Keep in mind it wasn't. For a movie that was $45 million, okay, $45 million what the budget on this was too. I found a lot of it to be murky. I think that like the effects on the space station are good. I think they're fine. You know what I mean? They look good. But I think the ambiance of this film feels very discarded from horror movies set in space. You know, that's how I felt, especially with this movie. If you've seen Event Horizon from the 90s, if you've seen Event Horizon, there's a lot of similarities tonally, visually, and even narratively to the way to the mood that this kind of creates. Though, Joe, talk to me a little bit. Am I nuts?
No, you're not nuts, honestly, because when you bring up Event Horizon, I always forget that movie exists from time to time. I'm just like...
Take something like this to
you know
remind
what? Thinking back to like how it looks, honestly, just how cheaply sometimes it looks, honestly, other than the parts in Event Horizon when it shows like people in hell, it's just like, oh, yeah, this looks like a cheaply made movie, honestly.
I honestly, I thought of Event Horizon once, the kind of the twist, or not even the twist, but just the main event of the film happens, and I'm thinking, and looking back on it now, I think Event Horizon is a bolder take on the concept and almost kind of where I wanted it to go. However, Cloverfield Paradox is just leaps and bounds a better movie, in my opinion.
You think so? Really?
Yeah.
Just a better ride and whatever. And not that it has quite a few flaws that for me holds it back from being something really, really smooth and crisp as a film overall. Like there's some really silly like tropes even, and like badly delivered jokes, even by the great Chris O'Dowd, who I love. Not only and Chris O'Dowd, from the IT crowd, of course, as well as he was kind of like the male romantic partner in Bridesmaids for Kristen Wiig's character. Yes. I believe he was a cop in that. And like there's like some smaller stupid things that eventually mount to like something that's nagging at you the whole time. One of that things where you can't just brush one off. Like there's a tropey. There's a news discussion and they're going to explain this concept.
Okay, I wanted to bring that out.
Yeah, seriously.
Go ahead.
Really,
they legitimately
JJ?
just tell you, like, honestly, how this movie's going to end within, like, the first, like, 10 minutes.
And I'm thinking, like, why? Why'd you spoil that?
And it's because a problem I have with this movie, honestly, is that it's answering questions that we really don't need the answers to.
No,
I haven't even asked yet.
Out of all the questions that we have at this point, you're right. Within the first 15 minutes, the writer of this film, Oren Uziel, he kind of addresses it right in the beginning to the point where he not only like answers the questions that we kind of could infer, especially just from the plot of this movie, but he answers the questions too that like I feel are sort of obvious in a way.
Yeah. It's like I feel like he finished the draft. This is all speculation. I feel like he like finished the draft of the script and it was like, will people get it? Let's throw in like a news reporter there or something.
That literally is explaining it step by step. If they do this, it will open up and then insert things.
So you
here.
already kind of know what the end result is. Now the other thing is that some people have been saying too, because there's been intensely negative reviews of this too. too. Apparently,
Which is dumb. It was just really dumb.
Well,
I feel like they're just completely missing the point.
Well, I've really kind of stayed away from it until today after I saw it. And then there's like some defenders of the film as well. Like here's the thing, is that first off, and I didn't go into this like this. My problems with the movie have nothing to do with this. So given the way the first Super Bowl ad was directed, defenders are claiming that people, especially given the way the first Super Bowl ad was directed, was that, and I can agree, I can understand this at least, is that the first ad that aired during the first quarter of the game, it felt like they were going to give like the film was going to give like an alternate perspective to what happened in the original film.
Because it showed clips of
the original film.
The New York attack. Yeah.
Yes, and it felt like it was supposed to give.
Plus, it even says
that perspective.
10 years ago, something arrived. Here are the answers.
Yeah, and it gives,
or here's where it come from. It says something along those lines.
So I understand, like, it almost the film press, and this is all marketing. This is all like for this. It's not like the film, you know what I mean? The film had this.
Yeah,
it's how external factors played into it. But they played it off like it was going to be an origin story of the monster and stuff, and it really isn't. And but here's the thing, though. I think anybody who has liked the previous two Cloverfield movies should grow to expect should have come in expecting this to be a non-linear follow-up.
Exactly.
Or like because you once you saw how different 10 Cloverfield Lane was, nothing in my mind thought any movie that was going to bear the name Cloverfield in the follow-up was going to be anything like the previous.
I love how the Cloverfield universe now is just a series of slightly connected movies,
anthological,
in this anthology type thing, but then there's like hundreds of hours worth of like fan theories, small stuff. J.J. Abrams throws in a bone here, a bone over there, and whatever. And that's to me that has absolutely nothing to do with like how you should like criticize or rate a film, but it's just fun, and I appreciate that being there,
because you try to find the connective points, and it also helps too that I like Cloverfield Lane was one of the best films of 2016.
Fantastic.
Completely agree.
And it's coming off of that too to begin with, that had like such unexpectedly high praise. I think a lot of people like myself went into it curious because it's like, man, this franchise is laying dormant. We didn't even know it was going to be a franchise. Really, it lay dormant for so long, and it could have really been. I mean, you think about like the margin of error for this franchise, this Cloverfield franchise. I mean, coming back 9 years later, risking doing something that it could have taken the easy way and done another found footage kind of movie, and it would have been totally throwaway. Instead, it makes a very grounded, and a lot of in my opinion too, almost like a commentary, like a representation movie, a very interpretive film that's so suspenseful from the very first frame, and the way that it adds to it. Then you get something like this, in my opinion, that I feel doesn't really add much. I don't think it adds much creatively to the series, and I don't think that it builds off of anything in a truly meaningful way. I think it's too slight in a lot of ways. I don't think that it really gets into the meat of especially what this concept allows.
For an hour and a half, essentially, of screen time, it almost felt like the movie just ran out of time of that hour and a half, as opposed to, hey, you can push it over 2 hours. That's fine. I would have actually appreciated that more. And that sounds like a back and forth. Oh, it's too short. Oh, it's too long. Why don't you go longer or whatever? And but really, when they start when they start attacking the crew, it almost feels like a checklist at that point of like, oh, hey, this is happening to this person, this is happening to this person. And it doesn't feel
the
like...
The minute somebody says, like, I gotta go do something, they're gonna die.
Yeah, seriously, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
You can almost sense it with like at least like one character where you're just like, why are you alone? Why is it hanging?
And like you said, they get killed off, and it's done with horror tropes all the time. There's a scene where a character gets killed off because he's distracted by something he honestly probably should be distracted by, because... prior to that event, he kind of lost a limb to it.
Yeah, seriously. But
these morons have never, for as smart as they are, these people have never, these astronauts have never seen like other horror space movies. And that's the problem. I feel like you run into a lot, especially if you're writing these movies. And you saw that if you saw the Jake Gyllenhaal movie Life, you saw a little bit of that with Alien Covenant. Is that you have you have to make these characters, you know what I mean, succumb to a fate in a way, at least a couple of them. But at the same time, that involves them doing some like stupid, impulsive things that like you could presume that people men and women of this like high level intelligence and stature, high enough at least to get into this position, wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of falls back into that line. But on top of these people just being faceless, you know what I mean? I don't really think that you
don't feel for anybody other than Hamilton, honestly, on this shit.
Who's only given, really, in my opinion, one really big decision at the beginning of the movie. Even after that, I don't feel like she's given a ton to do as a character. Especially just, if nothing else, just be a vessel. Just be a vessel for a plot. I
feel like this movie didn't play with its own rules enough. Like,
I would agree.
Given like your concept is multi-dimensional, just absolute craziness, and that is like a science experiment gone horribly wrong, which is what it is. And like you have that literally scientifically infinite possibilities, and when you see it all laid before you, it's like there are a couple of tricks it does where like some kind of horrifying things like, oh whoa, what was that? And it's like, oh okay, that was cool, but it never pays off, it never ramps up, it never one-ups itself. It does, I think it does some clever tricks at first, and like the possibilities are there. It's really exciting. That first third is really exciting.
It is, because you've got a great setup. Like the Earth is gone. Like that is very horrifying to be.
Once
up in
I heard
space.
that as the plot of what was originally called God Particle, I was like, man, this fits right in with a Cloverfield movie. But and it's funny. I mean, right at this point, anything could fit in with a Cloverfield movie. But I said like this is a special premise, and this is a horrifying premise in a lot of ways.
And I loved it because at one point, one of the characters goes, or like someone asks a question, like a scientific question, and then the character goes, "Who's supposed to like a doctor?" Right? He's like, I don't know what to believe anymore. Like this is like a man of science goes, I don't know what's happening now. And like that
you should run off with that.
Yeah, seriously, that was horrifying to me. I'm like, this is crazy. But then the film in the latter half does not pay off in that way.
No, it doesn't. It
turns into almost like a
slasher film.
Yeah, like a slasher film, really.
It does. Like that was one of the issues for me, is that this movie starts off, the first half to me started off so strong, and was to me, I was enjoying the idea that I was playing with. Yeah. It was like, okay, it's getting really crazy. The second half of the movie, it just becomes a slasher film.
Yeah.
Essentially. There's a stark change in tone.
Yeah.
There's a stark change in tone. I just think, in my opinion, there's something that's really fundamentally lacking here, especially when you consider the previous two movies. There's something that's not even drawing by comparison. It feels lacking, and not to mention there's also the element, like we were talking, you said it felt like an episode of Black Mirror. There could be an episode of Black Mirror,
which is funny because the main character Hamilton, she's in like the award-winning episode San Junipero, and it's like one of the best episodes. So I guess that's kind of what triggered it for me. But
yeah, and it's that, and it feels in a way like a run-of-the-mill Twilight Zone that tries too hard to connect to the original two, and I think it strains in some ways.
It loses its focus.
Absolutely.
It tries to do so. The thing about the other two Cloverfield movies is that they were simple. The first one is a found footage monster film.
That's another thing, yeah.
The second one is a bottle film. It's a thriller. This one is like, okay, we're going to be a horror movie, we're going to be a sci-fi movie, we're going to be a mystery, but then we're also going to give you answers to the previous films, and then we're going to do, we're going to tackle all these other concepts while, it's like, it tries to do too much in one film, while this franchise has, the two other, films did something so simple and just focused on that and made something extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing, is that where the previous two felt so pleasantly minimized. When you get a movie like this that really tries to up itself, you know what I mean, and offer this whole other theory, because and again too, could you ever see, when you watch the original Cloverfield, could you ever see it eventually 10 years later coming? The monster comes to Earth. Could you have envisioned 10 years later? Oh, it's a result of multi-dimensional travel. You know what I mean? Of all the monsters, of all like the kaiju tropes and all
apparently
the
author during that news interview at the beginning of the movie thought so.
He thought
Really.
Yeah, I just really think, and that's why I think I was more greatly disappointed. Not just because like you could say I was let down by expectations. That's the thing. I wasn't expecting anything. I don't think you really can with this.
No,
film.
it was
the expectations that it set up within the movie. That's what that kind of was a letdown.
It wasn't that I wanted another monster movie. It's like, and I know again too, we're probably not going to get another. They can make like 5 more of these movies, I don't think we're getting another 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think that, you know what I mean? I think that was the peak right there in a lot of ways. But it was just like you said, like Dom said, the expectations this thing set up for itself. And then when you finally get to this, though, when you finally sit down and watch this unfold, you get sort of the sense that it's a cobbled together movie with a great idea that doesn't really know how to approach it originally, so it takes cues from other things. And the previous 2 Cloverfield movies didn't do that, and I think it goes back to Joe's point in that they had focus. They didn't have to. Where this, it's like they take this big concept and they have to draw from other examples in order to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like I'm like half disappointed, but I kind of want to see it again. But I don't know.
I do want to watch it again, but like another last thing about this is that even when it does answer stuff, you don't really get a solid answer, honestly. You're honestly left more confused about what the connection is to the other movies, in my opinion. And then it's all building up, honestly, to the last shot of the movie, which to me just hit the ground and just like was just laying there. It was just bland.
You could see it a mile away. It doesn't help that like the big like reveal of the end
comes moments in.
Yeah, it was already like it's already
like you knew what was going to pop up at the end.
Hinted at another scene like halfway through. I don't know.
You know, no, it was not shocking. It felt like it was supposed to be that moment where the audience goes, "Oh my god!" It's not that at all. In fact, one of my friends who didn't even see the other 2 Cloverfield movies was just like, well, I mean, I know what that is, but that still didn't hit me at all.
It's anything. It's like a jump scare.
Yeah, honestly.
It does in a way. I will say, though, the last 15, 20 minutes, I will say is probably the best portion of the film, just because, in my opinion, just because of the way that it feels like at the very end it's coming together, and I think that with more direction it would have felt satisfying.
I don't know.
I'm the opposite. I thought the first half was better.
Keep going, Steve.
The reason I say that the ending I think works well is because first off, you finally get more some good emotion out of Hamilton, okay? Who's kind of at the beginning you think is going to be this very integral, one of the cruxes of this movie, and at the end of the film, it feels like that she's almost coming to her own, especially with that message that was teased too as part of the commercial. That message that she sends out, I thought that came at an opportune time, and I think the way it starts to culminate together at the end, it suggests that like a better movie would have made this ending feel more rewarding, or at least feel warranted. But I think the last shot is lessened in a lot of ways, like you said, because within the first, you kind of feel like this is what it's going to build to. Or you're even told that this is what it's going to build to. I do think that the ending does merit some success. Especially granted through what we had to sit through. I mean, we had to watch Chris O'Dowd's arm flounder around too. So I think the fact that I was just watching something a little bit more grounded and a little bit less absurd, I think that took me as well. You know, in that sense.
It came together at the end, but it came together in such a unsatisfying way.
Because you and I wanted more with that multi-dimensional stuff.
Oh, sure.
That when it came down to just being a slasher movie, it was like, oh.
Like the eventual antagonist of this film was like, really? That's the antagonist out of this whole crazy thing?
And it's like, aren't there bigger things? Aren't there like literal bigger things that are going on besides this?
The author says like there's like demons and aliens and everything in his little news interview. It's like, okay, why wasn't this in the movie?
Yeah,
you could have gotten that crazy, honestly. Like something got on board, but.
And with the concept that you're saying too, I think that if they would have taken this and because like Dom said, they have the full reign to go as nuts as they want.
Yeah,
you know, they have the full reign to go as nuts as they want.
After 10 Cloverfield Lane, there's nothing like you have to really like be what that first film was. You can be whatever you want, honestly. You just have to have like, you know, like you said, the little hints that J.J. Abrams like puts in for just fans for their theories.
I would have loved to see a lot more done though with this multi-dimensional concept. I really would have.
Yeah.
I think that would have at least made for some excitement. You could have even like kind of forwent the specifics of the plot to try to implement more sort of more drama and more events explicitly connected to that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start with you. Give your final thoughts on the brand new surprise Cloverfield sequel, prequel, whatever you want to bill it as.
Pre-sequel.
I love it.
Interdimensional sequel where it's like kind of a prequel
sequel.
here, kind of a sequel there.
Are we even? I'm still like 85, only about 85% sure this thing exists. I'm still only 85% sure.
Honestly, for me, I did enjoy this film. As Dom and I were saying throughout the review, I enjoyed what they were just throwing at me and the fact that they were just running with it. They didn't run it, I think. I thought they could have gone farther with it, like we said. I thought they could have done more with the whole interdimensional travel concept. I thought they could have done much better with that whole thing. But I did enjoy what I got. I like the character of Hamilton. For it being on Netflix, I thought special effect-wise looked good. I do agree with Steve, though. The set design and just the camera, like cinematography and just the lighting, it's just bland looking. There really isn't anything distinctive about it. But special effect-wise, I thought it looked good. I didn't enjoy the parts that take place on Earth. I only really enjoyed everything that took place on the space station. And even if it does become a slasher film, I still was at least enjoying being up in that space station because it was the part of the movie that I enjoyed the most. Mm-hmm. I just really was bummed out with where it ended and how it was trying to connect it with the other films is, to me, what the weakest parts of this movie are. When I went to bed, honestly, I remember just thinking to myself, that was all right. It's a little disappointing. I think it's the weakest of the Cloverfield movies, honestly. Yeah. But I went to bed going, I'm pretty sure people will probably think it's okay. And then waking up to seeing like everybody just hating this movie, I was just like, okay, never mind. I guess I'm in the minority here. For me, it's about 2.5 stars.
Okay, that's kind. That's very kind. Dominic, you want to sum up your thoughts?
It's not a horrible movie, not by a long shot. Not when you see like I don't know things surrounding it. But if you were excited by the concept of just reality collapsing around you and nothing making sense anymore, just as one character said, really, I think the movie Event Horizon is worth your time. I don't think it's a good film, but it's worthy of one's time just because that concept is so crazy. Honestly, that movie is only saved by its crazy concept, and that I don't think anything has, at least nothing on film has, I think, attempted to tackle that before. Or you could watch if you're like just into crazy scientific or technological like conundrums, then just look at Black Mirror, which is also on Netflix. But as a film in itself, Cloverfield Paradox starts off so strong and so exciting, except there's some like things there that are like, wait, is this like some ominous thing that you just spoiled for me? Whatever. But as the film just kind of melds into something else, it just falls flat, and then it attempts to like some cheap tricks in terms of fan service or maybe even just straight up jump scares, trying to tie it all together, tie it to the other films, kind of, which it doesn't even need to do. I think its attempts at tying it to the other films could have been way subtler, even more subtle. Like there's some Easter eggs that are like, where the camera zooms in and it's like, hey, Easter egg. I'm like, no. You could have just done like a lower thirds to the side kind of thing. But anyway, that's getting real technical. For something that really caught everyone's attention and imagination in 2008 with the first Cloverfield, and for something that blew everyone away with something crazy for 10 Cloverfield Lane, the bar was really high here, especially with the crazy release in terms of like everyone, like a surprise announcement. I give it two stars out of 4.
2 stars out of 4. What's the other rating? What's the other rating?
The other rating is one lonely rotating Martin Luther King Jr. in space.
Oh, how to follow up that? Think the Cloverfield Paradox. Okay, again, this is a film that's all. I think its place in history, if you want to call it that, its place in history is going to be. God, it was that Super Bowl advertisement was so good, and then we got the Cloverfield Paradox. That's what I think that the history of this is going to be. Look, there's moments of I think are good, and I think conceptually it's a very fascinating I think it's a very fascinating idea. But I think that, and not to mention too, I mean, I think we kind of lowballed this, but I mean, this film's got such a good cast. I mean, this cast is great, and it sucks in a lot of ways that they didn't get to utilize them as I think even they wanted to. But I think the crux of this movie really is that you have a concept that's interesting if difficult to portray. It's interesting, number one, but you have a film that feels somewhat, even some would say maybe even paradoxically or even ironically, confined by the fact that it has to, like Dom was saying, it feels like it has to tie back in to the original two, to its previous two films, and I think strangely enough, that's what makes it go off the rails a little bit, because you can clearly see in the beginning it wants to be this very suspenseful dystopian movie. The second part of it, then, it tries to be a little bit comedic. Chris O'Dowd starts to kind of elbow and nudge his way into the movie and try to be a little bit too much in there. And then by the end, it kind of dissolves into like an Alien or style slasher movie. So there's a lot of different directions here. It doesn't feel as grounded as the previous two, and I think that really offsets it in a lot of ways. And coupled with the fact too that I think it really feels like a highlights reel of a lot of superior efforts. Like we keep drawing back to Event Horizon, which we the three of us talked about off air a few minutes ago. That movie has so much, even if it might not be the best written movie, that movie has so much intrigue to it too, but it also has a lot of different inclusions and ways to manipulate its own plot that I think have made it stand the test of time, where this feels like they had a concept, they weren't so sure how to do it, and then like you said, I think Dom said it really well too, they went for Easter eggs in a lot of different ways, and they went for really straining, I believe, to connect it to the original Cloverfield. As a whole, I give it 2 out of 4 stars, and I think that I even think in some circles we're considered kinder. You know, we're considered kinder.
Look, at the end of the day, like the soundtrack actually is amazing. It's hard for us to really talk about a soundtrack.
I was gonna say the opening credit sequence. I enjoyed what it sounded like. Honestly, that was really good.
That orchestra was good. Give credit where credit's due. That's Bear McCreary, who did the music, and he's done quite a bit. He's done quite a bit of stuff. I know he did, and this makes a lot of sense. He worked on the reboot for Battlestar Galactica. He did the music.
Yes, that's why I love that soundtrack, and I love the reboot. Battlestar Galactica. It's
there's parts of I think Battlestar in this too. You know what I mean? Of how they
a little bit
of how they incorporate. Again, like I said, I think it's a sum of other greater parts.
Going back to like that, we're being the nicest ones. I mean, I've seen people just online. Once again, I mean, it's just online. People are just trying to have the hot take. They were like, this is worse than Bright. I'm like, okay, hold on. Did you guys watch Bright, actually?
I wouldn't say it's worlds better, but it's not as bad as Bright. I wouldn't say it's worlds better.
These are the same people who hate Star Wars for the latest Star Wars movie for the wrong reasons. Like Episode 8, like they're just hating on it to hate on it because it's such a thing, right? Yeah. Cloverfield is such a thing now, especially in the bold way it presented itself. People are
as though I will give them some clout and say, though I will give even like intense naysayers, though I will give them some clout and say, you know what, for like the way that this thing was introduced, like I could believe, and I am a firm believer. I never like to use the phrase like I wanted to like this. I think that's implied in a lot of ways. I don't like to use a phrase like a lot of people start off like really intensely negative reviews. They say like, oh, I really wanted to like this movie. I really see though, I could see a lot of people going into this like after that advertisement. This is a good lead in for the next topic we'll get into in about 5 minutes. Going into what they saw on the for the commercials and stuff, I think regardless of what it was, whatever the film was going to be, people really wanted to get behind it. And I think that the fact that they didn't, I think that intensifies the anger.